Who is the worst attention seeker you've come across? Story 1. All right. In high school, my buddy was banging this girl who told everyone she got shot. I asked her to see the bullet wound, and she pulled her shirt down a little so I could see her shoulder. You know what was freaking covering her wound? One single ace Band-Aid. Bonus story. So she told my buddy he got her pregnant, condom did rip, so believable. She told him she wanted an abortion and needed $60 for it. He gave it to her. But I asked her how she was going to get it for $60. She said she was going to the hospital with a fake ID. I forgot the worst of all. She was a loud and proud juggalette. She got a shot. You know, those vaccines are as bad as bullets. Story 2. My brother was in a toxic relationship. He was physically and mentally being abused, not physically. He did manage to get his abusive girlfriend pregnant. It got to a point where he was actually crying because he just needed to come home with me to our mom. That was the last straw for me, so I said, frick it, come with me. So we grabbed his stuff and we literally ran from her. She was throwing his stuff out the door and screaming. We kept running, but then she yelled, if you don't come back right now, I'm going to stick a knife in my pregnant belly. I wish I was making this up. We, of course, ran back to prevent this. So yeah, that. Story 3. I went to uni with her in no particular order. She was violated repeatedly by an ex-boyfriend who kept on breaking into her room at night. When we reported it to campus security, they never saw anyone enter her room on security cameras. Same ex carved S into her chest with a knife. Never saw any scarring or evidence of any sort. Same ex spray painted S onto the outside of her window. She lived on the 4th floor of a tower block. Whilst traveling back home for Christmas, she fell over, knocked herself out, came into the hospital, was discharged, and beat the train home she missed because of being knocked out. That particular train journey takes 3 hours. Whilst at home for Christmas, her dad kept on taking LSD and was asking her to drive him to places in his van, even though she's never had a driving lesson. Was ran over repeatedly by a mutual friend. She just walked into his car. Claimed to be the biggest drug dealer on campus, but no one ever saw her stash. She can speak 7 languages fluently, but she can never remember which languages they are. There's so many of these. It was really sad and pathetic. That last one made me laugh. Can you imagine speaking 7 languages but not remembering which ones? That's amazing. This woman needs help, but I can't understand what she needs because she speaks Spanish. Does anyone here speak Spanish? I don't know, but I'll try. Story 4. In my sophomore year of high school, I briefly dated, then had an on-again, off-again relationship with this senior in my drama class. We'll call him T.I., as in the idiot. T.I. was awesome when we first met. He told a lot of cool stories and seemed to have an interesting life. He was a little weird, but the fun kind of weird, and very socially savvy, so he was generally well-liked by a lot of the class. Over time, however, I could tell T.I. was a little off. His story started to seem a little outlandish. For example, how Katy Perry and Ariana Grande kissed him on each cheek at the same time. How he survived a 30-foot fall from a treetop onto a large pole after being unconscious for hours. How he had a fake girlfriend, confirmed to be fake, that he dumped just so he could date me, and other unbelievable stuff like that. Something just wasn't right about this guy. The most attention W thing T.I. ever did was tell our entire class that he had some fatal disease that required surgery, from which he was probably going to die. We weren't dating anymore, and in an on phase of our relationship at this point, by the way. He even went as far as saying goodbyes and offering to sell his stuff. Honestly, I could tell that this was probably BS. He didn't know what this disease was except a tumor up near his, and I quote you know what. And just because he was a compulsive liar in general, but those who didn't know him as well as I did fell for it. One girl even had to go to counseling because she was so worried about him. He told us this and the Thursday before a week-long Thanksgiving break, and that his surgery was the next Tuesday. And if we didn't hear from him by that night, he'd be dead. So I texted him Tuesday night. No response. I texted him on Thursday wishing him happy Thanksgiving. Nothing. At this point, I actually started to get a little worried. What if something did happen to him? But there he was on Monday, back at school, totally fine. Not in a wheelchair or crutches or even limping. Yeah, I beat him out on it pretty hard. People who fake illness like that for attention just make me mad. There are actually people who are suffering and going through times in their life that are beyond traumatic, and you're using it for a little attention? Nope. F off. Story 5. My high school ex posted a picture of a knife on his wrist on Twitter after I broke up with him for cheating on me and being a pathological liar. He told everyone to message me and to talk to him. I cut off all contact, or he was going to kill himself. I hate that I was young and dumb, so it worked and we ended up back together. I once had a guy do that, but we'd been on like 3 dates. Called the cops on his pathetic butt. He got all upset with me because his parents got angry with him, LOL. But I totally understand the young and dumb part, especially if you once cared about this dude and don't want to see him in pain. Story 6. There's a girl in my college classes who claims her dad owns a huge soccer team but doesn't know the name. She's dating one of the LA Lakers but can't give his name out. But she is also talking to someone who's in the NFL to keep her options open. She says her dad works at a local steel factory and has no idea where his extra money comes from because he gives her hush money, then called another girl out in class for lying to fit in. Story 7. This girl I knew was the literal definition of attention seeking. She would always show off and always have to mention how much money and influence she and her family had, and then in the same breath would try to convince you she was from the hood. She wasn't. She was literally from the richest area in my city where high-level politicians and famous people live. She would constantly be extremely dramatic and say really disgusting things to get a rise out of people. She'd make really outlandish comments about different races, religions, poor people, the homeless, etc. She voted for Trump simply because she wanted to get a reaction from people. She was the kind of person who needed to one-up literally everyone. If you had a chronic illness, so did she, and it was so much worse than yours. Bad upbringing? Hers was worse. A tragic loss? Nothing compared to what she went through. Had some incredible news? Sucks to suck because hers was better. Her roommate was having some serious mental health issues, and she somehow managed to make it about her and her safety and vilify the poor girl instead of actively helping her seek treatment. She would get drunk and act like a crazy fool, flailing her arms and being loud and physical just so people would watch her. She'd make out with all our mutuals, who she'd refer to as her sons, gross, just to stir up drama. She would steal things from people's houses at a party, put it on Snapchat, and then, when she was caught, would delete it and act like it never happened and then play the victim. She lied to everyone about hooking up with a mutual friend of ours. She lost a lot of friends in the past year or two, myself included, because we can't deal with her dramatics and attention-seeking ways anymore. I'm trying to be as non-descriptive as I can because a lot of things she did are very specific, but this is just some of the stuff she's done. If I listed everything, we'd be here all day. I have the time to read more about this girl. The thing that makes me a little sad about this person, and frankly other people being talked about on this list, is this behavior might stem from being ignored at home. I know it's a stereotype, but a rich kid being ignored by their parents? I mean, this woman feels like she fits that bill, and I'm a little sad for her. A little. It doesn't make her behavior and actions okay. I feel like we could put this phrase on some Mainly Facts shirts with how much I say it, but sympathy doesn't erase accountability. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 8. I had a girl in my class which kept telling lies to make her seem more bad A or that she would be living the best life. She always told everyone she was living on top of the mountain and had to go like 5 kilometers to school every morning by foot. I was actually friends with her, so I went to her house once, and she was living in an apartment which was in an alleyway filled with drunkards. She also said that she was part of some group that were basically freelancers and that she would do life-threatening tasks every day. But she also said it would have to stay a secret even though she basically just screamed it around the whole school. Overall, her stories about that group had so many cliches, like they had a member which was a 12-year-old, which were frickin' berserk every time he saw blood because his parents were killed in front of him, and that they had some 12-year-old scientist who apparently built some sort of gun that they'd use on the berserk kid to calm him down. She also said that she had a rival or something because apparently she kept getting followed by a dude that knew her code name, but every time she chased him, he would apparently jump on a frickin' roof and run off. The stories also had a lot of logic failures. She once told that the group was building gliders for forest missions to jump from tree to tree easier, even though the gliders would be way too wide and they just break the wings because it would collide with every possible tree. Once she also told us that the group would have a 12-year-old member that for some reason had access to guns and that he shot a fist-sized hole through her wrist during a training session. She apparently didn't even get medical treatment, but instead just put a bandage around half of her arm. But in school, she was able to move her arm completely normal, and there were never any traces of a wound, not even some blood or something. So nobody ever believed her, and she became the most hated of the class. At the end of the year, she had to leave the school because her grades were too bad, and she kept telling that it was just because of French and that she would have the best grades of everybody, even though the truth was that she had a D in almost every class and even multiply E, which you can make you leave the school here in Germany. By the way, she was also just 12 years old. Sounds like she watched too much anime. I'll be honest, all 12-year-olds sound like this girl to me, but I am nearing 40, so I think that's just the crotchety old man in me starting to show. You punk kids and your animes and forest gliders. Story 9. There was a chick in my high school who faked pregnancy, claimed to do drugs in the restroom with her drug buddies, and then told people I was the father. I never had fricked her because I kind of had the gay. Story 10. This girl in 8th grade claimed she was depressed and self-destructive. She was popular, so everyone believed her and felt bad for her. She got all kinds of attention for it. There was this kid in the same grade who was actually depressed, and he tried hanging himself on a doorknob in the back of our class when no one was looking one day. And in an odd way, he became popular after because of it. She decided to do the same one day in class, except no one noticed her doing it until she passed out and had to go to the emergency room. Story 11. Back in early elementary school during art, I used to talk crap about my own art to get a lot of compliments from other students. My teacher noticed it and told me to stop. I once did that and my friend was like, "Oh yeah, you're right, it sucks." And I felt so betrayed. Story 12. Sister-in-law. At our wedding, she did everything she could to steal attention away from her sister, my wife. She wore a dress that she had altered to be both low-cut and short-skirted. Then, when no one was paying her attention, kept accidentally dropping things so she would bend over to pick them up. When her dad remarried, she was telling people at the ceremony that she had cancer, but had come to terms with it. She didn't have cancer. I went to a costume wedding once. One woman, not the bride, wore her own wedding dress and claimed she was the bride of Chucky. So we have another person faking having a serious illness so she can go and eat a whole bucket of F off, and we have someone wearing a wedding dress to a costume wedding. Nah, sorry, you have a costume wedding and you are accepting some wild risk there. Sorry, bride and groom, but frankly, I feel like every person possible should have worn a wedding dress just because it would have been hilarious. Story 13. My fiancé has been my best friend since we were kids. Once in high school, he was dating a girl who decided that after scaring the crap out of him by trying to cuff him to the bed against his will, she was going to threaten to kill herself if he dumped her. About 10 years later, I ran into her at a party. She was there with her husband and infant son, not the kind of party you take a baby to, but okay. She proceeded to tell me how they never technically broke up since, being 15 years old, his answer to, "If you dump me, I'll kill myself," was to just stop talking to her. And because of that, they were technically still together and she was cheating on him with her husband, making her son a bastard. She was 100% serious, and she also told me to tell him she wanted an apology. This was in front of a lot of very stunned people. Man, I feel bad for her husband. Story 14. There was a girl in my college that constantly would say crap. During orientation, she told people she was recovering from brain cancer, didn't happen, and was partially deaf. She wasn't. She then found out my friend had epilepsy, so she started doing these exaggerated tremors. She would then fake seizures all the time for all of the years she was there, which was a pain in the butt because I would have to treat them like real ones. She did it once during a power outage for the most attention possible. She did it so often that once 911 hung up on someone calling it in because they knew it was her. Since I keep getting comments about 911 hanging up, I feel like I should mention that the person who called was also a dispatcher. Sounds like a pathological liar. Story 15. My roommate's cat died last week. When she told her coworkers, one lady proceeded to start telling a story about a cat she kind of owned that never even lived with her that died 5+ years ago. She got so worked up that she started crying and the entire office started consoling the coworker instead of my roommate whose cat had died the day before. Unbelievable. This lady needs a serious dose of "go F yourself, Errol." Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.